Myles Garrett did what a lot of players do during Super Bowl weekend when they want to get traded, when they want a new team. We saw Russell Wilson a couple of years ago. If you want to get traded, you contact your agent and you make noise the week of the Super Bowl. And Myles Garrett put out a statement that read, as a kid dreaming of the NFL, all I focused on was the ultimate goal of winning a Super Bowl, and that goal fuels me today more than ever. My love for the community of Northeast Ohio and the incredible fan base of the Cleveland Browns has made this one of the toughest decisions in my life. These past 8 years have shaped me into the man I am today. And while I've loved calling the city my home, my desire to win and compete on the biggest stage won't allow me to be complacent. The goal was never, this is my favorite line of the whole thing, the goal was never to go from Cleveland to Canton. It was always to compete and win a Super Bowl. And he said, with that in mind, I have requested to be traded from the Cleveland Browns. Signed, Myles Garrett. Now, a little rewind there on that last line about going from Cleveland to Canton. What makes that extra interesting, what makes that very interesting is Andrew Berry, their GM, in the press conference about Myles Garrett before the season, he said that same thing, that they wanted him to go from Cleveland to Canton, as if it was a good thing for him, as if that's what he wanted. But no, he wants to go to Canton, but along the way, he wants to go to New Orleans too and play in the Super Bowl, right? He wants to compete for a Lombardi trophy because, look, a guy like Myles Garrett realizes that his legacy ultimately is going to either sink or swim at the highest level based on what he does in the playoffs, right? I mean, Barry Sanders never won a Super Bowl, but he's still considered all-time great. But to really take it to the next level and sit at the table with the Reggie Whites and the Aaron Donalds, you've got to win a Super Bowl. Myles Garrett is just an alien. I mean, that's what his teammates call him, the alien, right? Last year, tackles for loss, 22, that was first. 83 pressures, tied for first. 14 sacks, that was second. He's never been like one of these like 20 sack guys, right? Kind of more like a traditional. He's not like the Micah Parsons, kind of like flashy, kind of modern type pass rushers, but 28 QB hits, that's tied for third. But you look at the consecutive 10 sack seasons, that's where he shines. It's the consistency every single year. 7 straight seasons, he's had at least 10 sacks. The all-time record is Reggie White, who had 9. John Randall had 8. He's 2 seasons away from tying Reggie White from that standpoint. You look at the All-Pros. You look at the Pro Bowls. This is someone that should be in a better organization, playing for a better team. Unfortunately for Myles Garrett, he plays for the Cleveland Browns, an organization that thought it was a good idea to move off of Baker Mayfield and trade and sign Deshaun Watson to what is the worst contract in NFL history. And I will tell you, Deshaun Watson, the potential was there. It was great in college, won a national championship, beat the Alabama team, was great with the Texans, looks like he was the future face of the league. But then, of course, there was the massage parlor issues. There was the injury issues. And I can tell you right now, no matter what happens to Deshaun Watson at this point, there will not be a happy ending for Deshaun Watson with the Cleveland Browns, if you know what I'm saying. And I think that Myles Garrett realizes that. And I think that Myles Garrett knows that now is the time to try to see if he can get his way out of Cleveland. Now, if the Browns were to trade Myles Garrett before the draft, which you would have to assume that would be the way so they could get picks, well, they would basically have to eat $36 million in dead cap. They'd be penalized an additional $16 million. So even though Garrett wants out, he probably would have to wait until after June 1st for this to even be a realistic possibility. And for the Browns, why would you want to do it at that point? Because you wouldn't be able to add any of that draft capital to replace a Myles Garrett. I mean, if I am the Browns, if this was something I could do, trust me, I would try to get picks. I would try to get Abdul Carter maybe and try to rebuild. But it's just not going to happen because of the cap situation that they're in. They've already pretty much made it clear that they're not going to trade him. But, yeah, for one of the best players in the league, it looks like he's stuck in Cleveland, at least for now.
Yeah, well, first, good for Myles Garrett, though. I do believe, I mean, the situation with the Cleveland Browns, I mean, let's be real, Doug, it's an absolute mess. It's been a mess for a long time. And in hindsight, when you look back at it, you should have kept Baker Mayfield, all the drama, OBJ. It's just...
He played through an injury.
This is an organization that has failed their best players time and time again. And the Deshaun Watson situation, I mean, Deshaun Watson, he's never going to be a franchise level quarterback again. He tore his Achilles again after repairing it during his recovery. It's over. And you have this contract that you have to pay out because it's fully guaranteed, and you're in a debacle, and Myles Garrett sees the writing on the wall, and he has to get out from under it. I think there's a few destinations that will like Myles Garrett because he is the best defensive player in the world. I don't even think it's a debate, and it shouldn't be. But if I'm the Cleveland Browns, maybe I can get 2 first-round picks in this year's draft because of Myles Garrett. I mean, ultimately, by June 1st, you may not have the opportunity to utilize that draft capital, but you do have to accommodate Myles Garrett. I do feel like this is a guy that can get you a haul in return, and you have to maximize that.
I agree. And could you get, like, so the 2 first things is a little crazy for me. I think maybe a first and a third, and you take on that contract, maybe go that direction. If they could potentially get that, that's something interesting to me, but they've already kind of made it clear that they're not going to entertain this, that the Browns are saying, no, Myles Garrett is not for sale. You can't trade for him. Then again, didn't the Mavs say the same thing? I mean, maybe they need Nico Harrison to run the Browns or something like that to have a better chance for that. But yeah, I do think that it's a tough situation. And ultimately, basically, teams don't know the salary cap for next year too. And when you're at that position, you're pretty much in a guessing game to determine who's going to be available, how that impacts your cap situation. And the most important thing for Myles Garrett, though, is using Super Bowl week. As you said, I mean, good for Myles Garrett. I'm all about player empowerment, right? I mean, if you are of this stature, you have some leverage. I don't care what you say. When you're this good, when you have this voice and you have this ability, you can go out there and put this out there, because what this does is it makes the Browns look like what they are, an incompetent organization, right? I mean, the Cleveland Browns, not for Paul Brown, it's for the brown bags their fans wear over their heads when they're in their 12th or 13th loss of the season, right? But the truth is you're basically sending the flare gun out there to teams to say, hey, get your best packages together. If you want me and you want to trade for me, you got to put a nice aggressive package together, and then maybe you get some public leverage from that standpoint as well. But as far as teams go, I want to see him on. I'll tell you the 3 teams I want to see him on. First team, the Commanders. They have the cap space. You've already had success in year 1. He just kind of like feels like a commander. I don't know. Is it me? I mean, I don't know.
My short list, the Commanders are actually one of the 5 teams on my short list. So I agree with that. I want to hear the other 2 that you got, because I think I know one of them, a team in New York that wears blue and red potentially.
I see. That's the thing. I think if I'm Myles Garrett, they're definitely up there. I have to look. This is next one gonna be a little biased. Okay. I think the Rams. When you look at where the Rams are at right now, you've already hit on all those young draft picks. You've hit on Kobe Turner. You've hit on Byron Young. You hit on Jared Verse, Defensive Player of the Year as a rookie for rookies. And Braden Fisk has also been fantastic. He's someone's kind of, that's an organization. So this is the thing about the Rams. They don't do like, a mid-level star. It's if we're going to go out there and we're going to give up assets, it's only for the Jalen Ramseys, the Matthew Staffords, like the biggest stars, the best players at their position. So that's definitely a team that, look, if they're serious about wanting to win a championship with Matthew Stafford, kind of replacing Aaron Donald with a superstar. I mean, look, Turner's been great. Fisk is going to be really good. Verse is really good, but Myles Garrett's different, right? I mean, like, he is the guy in the league right now. And you look at where the Rams are at from a cap space standpoint. I mean, they're lighter on the picks. I mean, they're selecting at 26. I mean, they're missing a second and their own third with the comp pick instead. But I mean, they could make a competitive offer based on their cap situation. But I was also going to throw out a team like the Arizona Cardinals. Ugh. I mean, I think the Cardinals, they need defense. I mean, the Cardinals are a team that you want to maximize the Kyler Murray era. It's been mixed results there. And Arizona, I mean, if they pay up And if Garrett signs off on a move there, I mean, the Cardinals, I mean, that's a division where we saw last season. 49ers were expected to win. It ends up being the team that was expected to be one of the worst in the Los Angeles Rams. I think that's definitely another team I would definitely could see him going to.
Definitely think that's interesting. The only thing that scares me about the Arizona Cardinals, Doug, is you just talked about that your goal is to win championships, and that's why you want to be traded. Can you really visualize yourself winning a championship in Arizona as a member of the Cardinals? Listen, man, I saw that clip of Gannon trying to motivate his team, and I can't see it. I mean, he couldn't get me to run through.
You just have so much cap space. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I don't know, man. I just feel like when you look at it, I feel like the short list would be like the Commanders. I could see the Ravens potentially. I like the Rams though. Jared Verse and Myles Garrett together, Doug. I mean, you would have to put them as a contender in the NFC. I mean, you saw what they did this season alone. So I do like the Rams. I actually think you said it was biased. I actually think it makes a lot of sense.
Another team, the Chargers. They don't have to worry about finding a quarterback. They're picking at 22nd. They have all their selections available. The Chargers are a team that, I mean, Khalil Mack is a free agent. You got Bosa, who's always unreliable when it comes to health. I mean, they need a premier pass rusher. And if they are completely invested into Harbaugh and they're invested into Justin Herbert, I mean, that to me is a wild card team. I mean, you look at teams that are looking to add star power, add brand cachet and stuff like that. Chargers are a team that I could also see too. But I mean, here's the thing. It's kind of one of those things you can't buy a house not for sale. The Browns are going to make this very difficult. This is going to get really ugly. This is going to get really, really ugly. And it really is mainly due to that awful contract that they signed to Deshaun Watson. But realistically, I mean, I think you were going to mention the Giants right now, right?
I mean, I was going to mention the Buffalo Bills.
The Bills. So the Bills, another team too. I think the Bills is another team that makes a ton of sense with Bean and what they're trying to do. Because look, any team that needs a premier elite edge rusher like they do, you look at how close you've gotten. And at some point, the frustration of always being the bridesmaid, never the bride, and being that franchise that has not hoisted a Lombardi trophy, at some point, I'm going to be desperate. And they should manage their roster desperately because of Josh Allen, because of just not being able to get over the hump with Patrick Mahomes. So that's certainly a name. I mean, look at what the Chiefs have with Chris Jones, right? I mean, look at how they're able to operate. So, yeah, I like that. That would be the move that I think would have the biggest impact on the league overall for sure.
Doug, I think people fail to realize how much of a needle mover Myles Garrett actually is. He is probably the most impact defensive player to come, at least from in my generation, since legitimately Aaron Donald. Like, I think my list of this generation right now, of at least the last decade, it is Aaron Donald and Myles Garrett. Like, that is the top of the food chain when it comes to defensive pass rushers in this league.
That's certainly the short list. That's absolutely the short list. Now,